And it's showtime for session three. Guys, if you have ever wondered what it would be like to be able to channel your power, your inner wisdom, to be able to get answers using a pendulum, you are going to love the next presentation that we've got with Nicole Kincaid. And she'll be back, and I will introduce her in just a minute. And we're back. Nicole, welcome to the set. Welcome to the stage. I am going to go ahead and brag on you a little bit, as I've said with the last two presenters. I know you're too humble to kind of brag on yourself. So guys, if this is your first time hearing Nicole, you are in for a treat. Nicole's work at its core is about the nature of energy. She is an energy worker, and her main offerings and what she's known for is a unique version of energy work, including something called stuffology that she may talk about today, and space clearing. And today she is going to be talking to us about the process of using our energies, organizing our energies, focusing our energies, if you will, through the use and practice of using a pendulum. And so I'm not going to waste any more time because I know that this is going to be an action-packed and information-packed presentation. Nicole, as you get started, I don't know if you plan to do this, but let's just give them a heads up on maybe getting the tea bag or a pendulum or a necklace or something that they can use, because this will be an interactive presentation, right?
Yes, it is.
All right, I'm going to jump backstage, so you've got the floor.
Okay, awesome. Hey everyone, I'm so happy to be here. I first and foremost want to wish all the mamas out there happy Mother's Day, and I hope you're having a great day. And if you're a mom and you're spending time with us, awesome. I'm very honored. My name is Nicole Kincaid, and I love teaching this class. I recently taught this class, and a mom was there with her two teenage girls. And after the class, she asked them, "Hey, what did you like most about the class?" And one of the girls said that it worked. And I loved that compliment so much, because what it really spoke to me is that the pendulum is such a potent and powerful tool for the perception and use of energy. However, there are some steps involved with learning. I'm going to try and just do that. Learning how to use it. And when you learn these steps, you never have to learn them again. And it can make all the difference in getting accurate results with the pendulum. So just let me back up for one quick second. I learned how to use the pendulum about 20 plus years ago. I went to a postgraduate program at Bastyr University in Seattle, Washington. And unbelievably, the program was called Spirituality, Health, and Medicine. And unbelievably, the program had a component in it with pendulum use. And I'm going to tell you a little story, because I think many, if not all of you, will be able to relate to this. But I was a very sensitive child, a very sensitive teenager, and a very sensitive adult. And I did not have awareness around how to separate out like what I was feeling from that's out there, and have that feel very impactful for me. So I would walk out into the world, like as I'm sure many of you do, and feel everything, and feel what people's moods are and what they were going through, or if they were in pain or happy, or if there'd just been an argument in a restaurant I'd been in. Like I'm sitting at the table and I'm like, oh. And so the reason I say that to you is because it wasn't until I picked up the pendulum where I was able to sort of braid out and thread out all that information soup, all of that energetic geography, and really distill it down to, okay, here's where I start, and here's my my field and what I'm responsible for, and then here's how I can perceive and work with energy. And so I really wanted to share that with you because I think that maybe some of you can probably relate to that, right? So moving on, I want to talk just a little bit about the logistics. If you have questions, this is going to be a very interactive class. I'm going to put you to work, okay? So if you have questions, I'll be on a lookout for those. And if I see your question, I will definitely try and get back to it. And you may have questions. I don't typically teach this class where there isn't the back and forth, but it's going to be great. We're going to have a lot of fun. And what I would like to remind people is that you can always ask me questions afterwards too. And we can keep the conversation going. You have all of my social media information and all the stuff that, all the ways to get in touch with me that Jean-Michael has already provided. So, but I do want to say we are going to get to work and we are going to get started because this hour is going to go by really quickly. So the first thing is that hopefully every one of you has a pendulum. And I'm going to start off with saying that picking a pendulum is kind of an important part of having the pendulum work properly. And the reason I say that is because think about if you were going to go skiing or you were going to go on a run, you'd want to have the right equipment. Like if you had a ski suit that was way too large on you and didn't quite fit, that's going to really impede your ability to ski well, right? Same thing with having a pendulum. And so I have 3 pendulums I'm going to show you. And by the way, I just want to interject one quick second because this is interactive. I'm wearing a light colored shirt so that you can see me holding my pendulum and what I'm doing. And I will also maybe from time to time be popping out of the screen just a little bit because I might want to just show you something. So my head's going to pop out, but I just want to show you something. And so I'll just be doing like this, and then I'll pop back in. Okay. So I just wanted you to know what I was logistically going to be handling over here on this end to make sure that you were aware of what was going on with how I'm running the show here. So, okay. Pendulums are a weighted object with a string or with a wire or any other kind of leather or whatever. They have usually like 2 ends to them. And I like to have a pendulum that has a bobble on each end. And I like them to be between about 4 and 6 inches. And the reason I do is because having a pendulum that's too long is like having that ski suit that's too big. And that's where sometimes people will use their necklaces. It works in a pinch. It's no big deal. But if you enjoy this class, which I think you're going to, I know you're going to, and you want to dive into doing more pendulum work, go ahead and invest in a pendulum. Go find one that you really, really love, that really feels right, that really feels like it fits you, okay? So this is one of my favorite ones. Do you guys know what? This is a pendulum that Andrea made. Isn't it beautiful? I can't remember what the stones are. This is also a pendulum that Andrea made. And Andrea Savar from the first segment of today. This one's just a wee bit longer. But they both work great. So one's like around 5 inches, and I guess this one's about 7 inches. But I love both of these pendulums because they're weighted on both ends. Okay, weighted, and they have these weight distributions in between. I really like that because if you go to your local esoteric bookstore or wherever that you can buy pendulums, sometimes when you're holding them and there's just the chain in between, sometimes it can feel a little bit like the counterbalance maybe isn't quite right. Sometimes it depends on the baubles that are on each end, but I do like having the weights in between too. To me, that just feels really, really good. Okay, so you should have your pendulum ready to go. If you did not bring a pendulum or you don't have one yet, go grab a tea bag, and it totally works in a pinch. They're like the right length, um, and they're just barely weighted, and they're a great tool. I've actually been at a client's house digging through my bag and realized that for some reason I haven't had my pendulum, and I asked them very politely, may I please borrow a tea bag? Works great. But I do recommend that you go and find one, go treat yourself to a pendulum, or get in contact with Andrea and have a little session with her around maybe having her help you pick a pendulum. Here's another one that I absolutely adore. I love this pendulum. It's got a really big bobble on the end. And then again, I love having a bobble on both ends, because what I do a lot when I'm working with the pendulum is I switch sides, because I like to have, I just like, it just feels good to me to do that. Okay. Something I really want to address before we dive, yes, a dry tea bag, absolutely. Excuse me for just interjecting, but somebody just said, is it a dry tea bag? Yeah. Oh, if you have a wet tea bag, you can still use it, but you're going to have a lot of mess on you. So one of the reasons I love working with a pendulum so much is because it is a way that we can direct energy. It is not something that's very, very, very important for me to front load this class with, is really being very, very honest about the tool. And when I talk about the pendulum, I'm very reverent about them because I love pendulums. And I have them all over. I have them in my car. I have them by my bed. I have them in my office. But I want to say something really bluntly. And the thing that I want to say very bluntly is that a pendulum is a tool. That is it. It's a conduit. And I want you to hear that in the way that I mean it, with that it will help you tune into what you're perceiving and what you're feeling. The pendulum, independent of itself, is not doing anything. It's you that is in training with the pendulum to then pull the shade up on what is between you and infinite amount of possibilities and what is going on in the universe, and see and feel into the information that you're endeavoring to access. Okay? That just feels so important for me to share really candidly. And because I don't want you to give your power away. I want you to know that you are going to learn how to use this tool so that you can be empowered to drop into the information that's already available to you. Really cool, right? Many people are already aware of this analogy, but have you ever heard that how when a bunch of grandfather clocks are in a room together, after a given amount of time, they all start going like this. They all start swinging in the same direction, and they start moving in the same. So you'd walk into their showroom or whatnot, and all the grandfather clocks are going in the same back and forth motion. That's called entrainment, E-N-T-R-A, entrainment. And we're going to learn how to do that today. You're going to learn how to entrain with your pendulum so that you can begin asking it questions and getting information. Okay. All right. So you ready to dive in? Awesome. I feel like there was something else I was going to say real quick, but all right. The first thing that we're going to do is probably one of the most important parts about learning to work with a pendulum. And if you've ever had funky or wonky results with working with a pendulum, and you're like, it doesn't work, it's like, oh, I get mixed results, or it's weird, or whatever, you won't after you learn this first step. It will clear up so much for you. And I don't know anybody I teach it because it's that important. And it's all about polarity. And by polarity, I mean that we humans are in a body. And we all, a part of being in a human body means that we have a negative charge and we have a positive charge. We have electrical a force in us and we have a magnetic force in us. And we often can, at times, get off balance, and our groundedness as a human being gets shaken up like sand in a jar with water. And that means that we are no longer what's called in a clear and balanced state. Okay. So when our polarity is on, we're in a clear and balanced state. When our polarity is not on, we're off. We're just, and that can be because of any reason. I mean, there's no judgment in that at all. We could have had a disruptive conversation with someone or a fight, or there could be, oftentimes I get out of balance on airplane trips, because it's just like this very unnatural thing to be in a mechanism up in the sky zooming through the atmosphere, right? Many, many years ago, this is kind of a weird example, but there was so much waviness in the United States after 9/11 that I have a clearing group that I'm a part of, and we were all wanting to tune in and do whatever we could do to lift off some of that agonizing energy of what was happening after the 9/11 incident. And we were all switched. It's called being switched. So because it was so much in the field of just this intense energy. And so there's a way we get unswitched, and we'll do that. But first, I'm going to show you how to check if you're in a clear and balanced state. Now, before you check, why do you check to see if you're in a clear and balanced state? You do so because you do not ever want to ask the pendulum questions, the pendulum yourself through the pendulum questions. You don't want to ever do that unless you're in a clear and balanced state. Because if you do ask questions when you are off, when you're switched, you won't get accurate answers. And then you'll get frustrated and you'll think it's the pendulum, or you'll think it doesn't work, or you'll doubt yourself. When it could be just so simple as that, like, you are just not in a clear and balanced state. So here we go. All right. Y'all ready? So I want you to take your pendulum. When you're holding your pendulum, first and foremost, go ahead right this very, very moment, and please breathe. Like, part of why I'm not bouncing in between my presentation, which you'll all have access to, is because I really want you to be in your bodies. So much about working with a pendulum is about the subtlety of being in our bodies and breathing through our bodies, right? So just want to show you something really quickly. You want to take your pendulum, and you want to make sure when you're holding it that I'm going to show you from this side, that you're at an L shape. Okay. Now, if you were just to raise your hand, like, feel how different that feels. Or if you were to go way down here, right at an L shape, like the whole nervous system of the body and the whole body it goes into a state of, like, that is the formation where the angle of the body feels really comfortable for holding and working with the energy of the pendulum. Okay. All right. So you're in your L shaped. I'm going to raise my hand a little bit. I'll be out of formation just a little bit because I'm sitting now. But in fact, I'm going to tip my screen just a wee bit. And here's what you're going to do. What we're doing first is we're just checking to make sure we're in a clear and balanced state. That's it. Okay. You are going to, every single time you pick up your pendulum, you're going to check to make sure you're in a clear and balanced state. That's rule number one. So what you're going to do is, using the pendulum with your dominant hand, you are going to just breathe into it. Breathe into your body, not into the pendulum. Breathe into your body. And you might be having a little bit of a swing on your pendulum like I am. Okay? It might be going back and forth. It might be going sideways. It might be really, really tiny. It's all right. Whatever you're doing is whatever it's doing is fine. And it might just be like, I don't even see anything on it, but you might feel like there's a little bit of movement that hasn't quite reached the pendulum. If you've never picked up a pendulum before, it's going to take a little bit for it to like recognize your signal. Okay. So how you check if you're in a clear and balanced state, this is the polarity, is you're working your pendulum with your dominant hand, right? You take your other hand and you just slide it underneath the pendulum, and you kind of put it right underneath the pendulum. Okay. So my pendulum is swinging on my counterclockwise. Then it's going to be going a certain direction, correct? Then to check your polarity, you remove so it's going counterclockwise. You remove your hand, you flip it over, and you bring it back underneath the pendulum. What happens? This is the part where I usually get the gasps of shock from people. It's really cool. Like, what happens is it goes in a different direction. It could be a diagonal. It could be a back and forth. It shouldn't stop. If it's stopping, don't worry. It's okay. It's just endeavoring to pick up your signal. Just notice where you have like some constriction in your body around like, oh my God, it's not working. No, it is totally working. And keep working with it. So go like this. And then you take your hand away and then you put it back under. And it does a different signal. Okay. One of you out there right now is saying to yourself, it didn't switch signals. It's still going the same way. If it's still going the same direction, don't freak out. What that means is that you are switched. You're not in a clear and balanced state. It's no big deal. It happens all the time. Maybe you're hungry, maybe you're this, maybe you're that. So when that happens, it's a really easy fix. It's not even like you have to, oh, I can't use a pendulum for the rest of the day because I'm switched. No, it can change like that, right? So if you're switched, you will want to do this. What do I need right now? I mean, ask yourself that question and then let your mind go blank. And when some image or phrase will come to mind. I need a glass of water. I need to go on a 10-minute walk. I need to stand up and shake my body out. I need food. Something will come up for you. Go do that, or just go stand up and circle around your living room, whatever room you're in, and then come back. And then try it again. Okay? Okay. And if you're still not getting it, you're not broken. Your pendulum's not broken. You are in a process where you're learning something new. It's energetic. Your body might have some wondering and some curiosity about like, what is going on? Keep after it. Here's another thing you can try. I can't really show you this. Okay, yeah, I can. Hold on. You can also test your polarities over your knee. So you would go, here's one knee, and then I'm going to move it over to my other knee, and it's going another direction, right? Whew! No, I'm not wiggling the pendulum. And doesn't it seem like I am? No, I'm not. So I've been working with a pendulum for about 25 years, and I get people who are like, are you moving your pendulum? And I think, why would I do that? I really want to work with energy. So if the pendulum is like, if I'm doing something to make it move, that's me doing something, and that's the whole, like not the point of working with a pendulum, right? It's kind of like a funny It's a really good question, actually. I have really strong signals when I work with my pendulum, and I always have. I have a very, very dear friend of mine who gets the teeny tiniest little movements. And I was having dinner with her the other night, and she's like, "How come your pendulum just goes so crazy?" And I'm like, I don't know. Like, that's just how how energy moves and runs through me. And she's been working with a pendulum for probably as long as I have, and she gets teeny tiny yes and a teeny tiny no, right? So I love that question. Thanks for asking that. But no, I'm not wiggling it. It's just how my pendulum moves. Yeah, you bet. Okay, moving on. So, quick review. Always check your polarity first, because if you're not in a clear and balanced state, you will not get clear answers. All right, moving on. Gosh, I told you this was going to go fast, and it's already 12:41. Who's counting? But I want to keep track of time because I can go really timeless. Okay, like woo. So we've got some questions about that too at the end of how you ask questions. But the next thing that I'm going to show you is how do you find your yes and how do you find your no? Because the pendulum does not answer full sentences, sadly. It answers in yes and no. How you find it is you are going to pick up your pendulum, you're going to test your polarity, and I want to say, before you go looking for your yes, we'll start with your yes. You never, ever have to find your yes and your no again. This is a one-time exercise because the finding your yes and your no is the part of you in training your system, your body, on how to use your tool. So it's like if you were getting in a car in North America and you were learning to drive. You get into the driver's seat and you never have to teach yourself where the gas pedal is and where the brake pedal is ever again. You know, when you go to rent a car, you're going to get in the car and it's going to be in the same positions it was in on the last car you drove, right? So you don't want to add any confusion to your system around every time you pick up a pendulum, a different pendulum, like if you have like 25 pendulums like I do, of asking it what your yes is and what your no is. You don't do that. You only ask once. So how you do this is going to sound really obvious, but this is something that people really struggle with, is you hold your pendulum and you hold your pendulum and you say, "Show me my yes." I know, I'm trying to hold it so still so you guys can see that I'm not. Show me my yes. Pendulum, show me my yes. You don't have to say please. You don't have to beg for it. You just literally ask that the pendulum show you what is your yes movement. What are the options here? Your options are that, like my pendulum does, I go in a counterclockwise. Some people go in a clockwise. Some people have a back and forth swing. Some people have a diagonal swing, either this way or this way, right? You keep breathing into your body and be confident and knowing that you are going to find your yes, that you're going to ask it, what is my yes? What is my yes? What is my yes? When you feel that you have found your yes, like that your yes is, you can almost start to feel it all the way through your arm, right? And you're like, whoa, it's starting to do a movement. It's starting to feel like, and it's not going to be a no movement. It's not going to be no movement. You're going to get a movement. The whole purpose of working with energy is to feel things going on and going through our systems and our bodies, right? So having something not show you an indicator is not, no. So if it's not doing anything, first just do a quick check-in and just ask yourself, like, or just say, is there anywhere like I'm holding on to in my body right now? Am I feeling relaxed? Am I feeling like, oof, am I in my head right now? Do I need to just stand up and shake it out? And don't give yourself a bad time about it. Like, you will get your yes. And when you do, you'll see your yes. It shows up. It's say your yes is a back and forth. And what you do is you bake it. And what I mean by you bake it is you say, that's my yes. Yes. This is my yes. This is my yes. What you've just done, if you have just programmed your yes for you. So now until infinity and beyond, every time you pick up a pendulum, you will absolutely be able to boom, I'm checking my clear and balanced state, check, and then you can go right into inquiry. You don't have to go through any rigmarole about finding your yes or finding your no, right? Okay. You do the same exact thing for your no. Okay. So once you have found your yes, and then you have grounded in your yes, this is my yes, you then say, show me my no, show me my no, show me my no. Your pendulum will do a different signal. For me, I'm really boring. I go a counterclockwise on my yes, and I go a clockwise on my no. I always have. I've never varied from that. Because that's just what I got when I first started in training, but there was no question about it. Like, it was like, this is my no, this is my yes. Okay. And so, if you're not getting a clear signal, it's okay. Just keep with it and just keep, again, noticing in your body, like, God, am I holding on somewhere? And you don't have to overthink it. You can just make sure that your body is relaxed. You can even make sure your arm is in that L shaped. Oh my gosh, just going like this is a little bit constricting. Below the L is a little bit too loosey-goosey, but that L shape will really just position your system to just kind of signal in, right? Okay. How are you feeling about that? Pretty good, right? Okay. The next thing is going to be really, really strange, but there's actually a third signal. The third signal is really important. And the third signal that you're going to learn right now is called your maybe. And a maybe is because sometimes we ask questions that are kind of crappy questions, or that aren't clear, or that need to be cleaned up, or that are just bogus questions, or maybe they aren't even our business, right? When that happens, you will get a maybe, because there is an alignment that occurs when you are entrained with your pendulum, and then you're asking a question that you are open to, and that is open to you, that it is like, I call it a higher purpose question. So does this serve like the overall good for you to be asking yours, everyone else's, universes, to be asking this question? And it is a clean question, right? We'll get to clean questions in a second. You check the boxes on those, and then you'll get a yes or a no. If you don't, and we do this it happens to everybody, you will get a maybe. The maybe is just the indicator that you need to clean up your question. Okay? All right. So then go ahead and ask your pendulum, show me my maybe, show me my maybe. So you then at this point will get a third signal. So maybe now you have one signal that's going one direction for your yes. You have another signal that's going another direction for your no. And now you are going to get a third signal, and that's going to be your maybe. How do you feel about that? So my maybe is a back and forth like this. Again, if you are not getting anything, you might be stressing yourself out a little bit. You can just stop for a second and check in with yourself, with your polarity. I pick up my pendulum all day long and I just check to make sure I'm in a clear and balanced state. You know, sometimes when like your attention isn't always like on, like I call it two eyes on the inside, most of us live with two eyes on the outside, right? Um, Often it's a great idea to live in the space of having one eye on the outside and one eye on the inside. When we go into inquiry, it is very behooving of you to have two eyes on the inside and just to really be focusing in on what's going on in the interior. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I'm assuming right now that you've found your yeses, you found your no, and you've got your maybe. Awesome. Okay. Yay. That's great. I'm just taking a quick little glance at my notes because I don't want to miss a really important point. Okay, so that is truly the most important part about using learning how to use a pendulum. Finding your yes, your no, your maybe, and then preemptively always asking if you're in clear and balanced state. Now, the next part we're going to go over is the fun part, and that's how do you ask questions? Doesn't seem like that would be that hard of a thing, right? In the beginning, it can be a little more complicated than you might think. So, once you found your signals, you are going to practice because you found your signals, your yes and no, but it's not really like, it doesn't really ground into you until you really use it, right? And then really get it in your system. So the first thing that you're going to do for learning your signal, for practicing what are your yeses and what are your nos and getting clear answers, is you are going to ask questions that you know the answer to, right? But what this does is it helps again ground in your knowledge, like it helps your pendulum entrain to your system so that when we start asking questions we don't know the answers to, we don't get wonky answers, bad answers or wrong answers, because we want to have our systems fully powered up with and training with our pendulums. Okay. So when you ask a question you know the answer to, a good one to start with is, what is your name? So you could say, is my name Sue? And then in a very detached frame of mind, I wonder what the answer is. I wonder is my name Sue? You go into wonder and curiosity. Those are very, very conducive energies for the pendulum, state of mind, I should say, really. So go ahead right now and ask your pendulum if your name is either your name, or ask it if your name is someone else's name. My name is still Nicole. That's pretty fun, right? So then you could say another question you know the answer to. Is today Mother's Day in North America? We'll get to the kind of trickiness of that question. But is it Mother's Day in Seattle, Washington at this time? I'll say it that way. You want to keep practicing ongoing for forever with questions that you do know the answer to keep sharpening your tool. Okay? And you can always go back to just also checking your polarities, because when you are first starting to use a pendulum, it can be like when you first learn how to drive, where you just feel just out of sorts, like because you're learning something new. And so the whole system slows down. Like you're having to think, like when you're driving a car, oh, I'm shifting into gear, or like I'm turning, like you have one thought at a time when you're learning to drive a car, right? Same thing with a pendulum, but way less subtle, like way less obvious. So you want to keep reinforcing. I know the answer to, like, I want to enter into the place in awareness where I've dropped into this cooperative relationship with my pendulum, and I'm asking a question that I know the answer to. Is my name Nicole? Then you go on to ask questions that you don't know the answer to. Is my name Sue? Am I you want to ask simple questions right now. Is today Tuesday in Seattle, Washington? Did I have breakfast today? Things like that. You'll notice that with each question you get, possibly, this is what happens for me, the pendulum will go boop, and then it'll start up with that new question, boop. Another really important thing to point out is be patient with yourself when you're running your pendulum, because sometimes, like, people think that the pendulum is just going to like turn on a dime. It doesn't. Like, so slow your roll. Slow down and give the pendulum, especially early on, when you're first starting to learn it, a time to fully stop and change direction. It'll really help. Okay. So you can also ask things like, I already said, what's your name? What's not your name? You can also ask things like, is my birthday on September 26th? Just again, play with the kinds of questions that you're asking. Okay. All right. Something really important about asking questions is, there's a few of them for sure, but one of the reasons people get really stuck and don't get accurate answers when they are using a pendulum is because working with a pendulum is very much, for me, I believe, about going into maybe like a not so time space oriented zone. All right. Into what I call the field of information. So you have less spotlighting on the 3D, which is the right here, right now, physical matter, body, boom, boom, hard surfaces, and more availability to the 5D, which is the realm of all possibilities, all potentialities, no time, no space, right? That's awesome. That's where we want to go, because that's where all of the information lives. However, there's a little trick in that. And the trick is that in order to get accurate answers, you have to keep your questions time bound. Okay? So what do I mean by that? What I mean by time bound is, if I were to say, is my name Sue? My name's not Sue, and my name's never going to be Sue. And so I don't have to apply a time bound delineation on that question, because in this lifetime, in what I know, like right now, my name is Nicole. So I can say my name is Nicole, and I can ask that question, and I can expect that I'm going to get an answer, the correct answer. However, if you were to say, is it sunny today? A way to tighten up that question is, at this time, is it sunny? Bring it into the here and now. Because is it sunny today? Like, has like edges of vagueness to it. And we want to like sharpen the scope on really tightening up how accurate we can make our question so we can get accurate answers. Another one is my dog outside? When? Like your dog might be outside. Like if you're at the mall, none of us are at the malls right now because we're all inside, right? If you're not at home and you ask a question, is my dog outside? It could be outside, inside, in any given time. We want to give ourselves and give our systems and give this tool a chance to really focus the lens in. At this time, is my dog outside? I'm wondering, I mean, I'm not wondering as in like I'm expecting anybody to answer, but like I'm imagining that feels like way more clear to ask a question inside a time parameter, right? Then letting it have vague edges, right? Okay. At this time, and take your level question to the next level answer question you not know the answers to. I'm going to give you some exercises to do, and I might do them with you a little bit while we're here. But I want to get through these really important tips first, because a lot of people they love the pendulum, but they often feel like they sometimes get really accurate answers and the other times they don't. And I really hope that you are all resonating with the steps we've gone through so far around how to troubleshoot using your pendulum, entraining with your pendulum, finding your polarities, finding your yeses and nos once and for all. You only have to do it once, remember. And you don't use your hand, by the way. A lot of people think you keep using your hand underneath the pendulum. The hand is only for when you're finding out if you're determining if you're in a clear and balanced state. Okay. When you're asking a question, instead of intently staring at the pendulum, anticipating your yes and no, let your mind go. Detach from the answer and deploy wonder, and just say in your mind, I wonder what the answer will be. That will relax your system, and it'll also then allow for the pendulum to lock onto what that answer is in that given time in the field and drive it home through your pendulum. Okay? All right. We already talked about the at this time-bound questioning. Really keep practicing that. Whenever you can find an opportunity to put at this time in front of a question where it's relevant, do it. Because it will, again, I like that lens analogy, it'll go whoosh, and it'll just really focus your question in, and you'll start getting so much more accurate results. Okay. Be sure and afraid to yeah, the relevant tense, I call it. All right. I have some really bad news. I don't recommend, it's not really bad news by the way, don't hold your breath. I don't recommend asking questions where you are attached to the outcome. It's hard, and it gets into this shady area where we start asking things that maybe is not in our highest or best interest to know. I had a client one time who we were practicing back and forth, and we had a one-on-one pendulum, and she started asking questions about her husband and things that he may or may not be involved in. And I said, oh, you know, I really recommend that we do a different level of work around that energy of or that inquiry and that angst and that pain that she's feeling. But getting into the habit of using your pendulum for questions of that nature is tough. And I believe that it erodes away at the purity of the tool for just working with the energy and the inquiry that's available to you in, again, what I call in that highest interest sense. The highest interest. Is it in the interest of your good? Is it in the interest of other people's goods, if there's a question that's involving others? And is it in interest of the universe is good to really have the knowing of the answer to this question. Okay. Highest interest, best interest, one of the best ways asking tight questions. Okay. When you ask, is it right time? You can also ask, is it in my highest interest to be asking this question? Is it in my highest interest? But really important, try not to mix those two questions together, because that will get you a maybe. Okay? And what I mean by that is I was having dinner with a friend the other night, and she asked me that she told me she wasn't getting a clear answer on a question. And I said, what's your question? And she goes, is it the right time and in my highest interest to buy a new car? No, is it in my highest interest to buy a car at this time? And I said, why don't you work with that question as two different questions? Because the at the right time and in the highest interest are both really potent parts of the focusing in part. So cleaning that up is more like this. Is it in my highest interest to get a new car? Yes or no? Is it the right time to get a new car? Yes or no? That is a much more clean, sequential way of moving through the process. And I am telling you, you will so notice how stealth you will become with your pendulum, how much you will trust working with it, working with it. Much like I often say, when you see an orchestra, a director of an orchestra, and they're using their baton, we all know the music is not coming out of the baton, but that tiny sliver of that baton to be able to, it's giving me chills, to be able to produce that magnitude of music because of that direction of the director just working with it. That is the beauty of the pendulum. Keep it pure. Okay. All right. When someone asks you a question on your behalf, have fun. Yeah, totally allowed. People ask me all the time, can you ask me a question? Clear and balanced state. Am I in it? And then, is it in my highest interest to ask this question for this person? Yes or no? Is it the right time to ask this question? Yes or no? Really start adopting those two questions, especially. I used to travel for a living, and a lot of times I'd be on stretches of highway where I was very bored, and I would pick up my pendulum, and I would always get a not a right time to ask this question. It's just precautionary and super useful to get in the habit of just asking that to, again, sharpen the lens on getting accurate answers. Okay, I have a few minutes left. So I just want to go through a couple things that you can do to practice with your pendulum. Go get a coin at the end of the day. And it's just obviously a coin toss. So you'd flip the coin and then you would toss it and not look at it. And then you would ask the pendulum, is the coin in the position of a head facing up? Let it give you the answer and then look at the coin. 9 times out of 10, when you're first starting out, you're going to get the wrong answer because our systems, or you're going to get a 50-50, right? But my point is, don't worry about that. Keep practicing, because when you notice that you're about ready to look at the coin, so you ran your pendulum, you got it was in the head position. It's funny, it's in the head position. And then you look at it, like there's like this thing going on in your system around nervousness or like worry or it didn't work. That will go away eventually. The more you just say, I'm going to practice again, you will start strengthening these inner muscles around your coherence with your tool that will then develop like a muscle and never go away. But it's going to take getting a lot of wrong answers on your coin tosses and a lot to then get to the point where your system doesn't care what the answer is. It's just dropping into the field where the answer is, right? That's really the work of the work right there. Okay. Here's another really fun one. If you want to start practicing, you can ask friends and family about birthdays. When's your tell me when you're I'm gonna do some inquiry around when is your birthday? And then you could say, is your birthday, it's someone who you don't know their birthday, is your birthday in April? Is your yes or no? Right? And then you can say, am I right? You're right. It's not in April. Okay, great. Keep going. Keep sharpening those tools around asking questions you don't know. And in the beginning, give yourself softballs, easy questions, things that aren't going to make you upset if you don't get right answers. And that another really fun one to practice with are when women are pregnant, to find out when they're going to have their baby. It's really fun. And then like, who cares if you're wrong, right? So I said an hour was going to go by fast. It went by like super, super fast. If you don't have access to my notes, I'll make sure they're posted where they're supposed to be. You have all the information on how to get a hold of me. I hope you've enjoyed this class. I've really enjoyed teaching it, and I hope this is a tool that you will use and love for the rest of your life.
Thank you so very much. That was amazing. All I could think about was that, you know, the analogy of a baseball player has to hit a lot of strikes or get a lot of strikes to hit that home run. And they don't give up, and they might be a little upset that it didn't work that moment, but they put that upset aside and they swing again. So thank you so very much. Wonderful class. The checking your polarity was something I had never seen done that way. We do it a different way in my tradition, and it boggled my mind. So
good.
How much we have for those who are watching, guys. We have 5 minutes to go until our next class with Michael Hughes. So go run and use the restroom, refill your coffee, whatever, and make sure, as Nicole said, make sure you go into the file section of the room to get your any documentation, copies of our notes for any of the classes today. And if you have questions, you're watching this on the replay, be sure to ask those questions before you run. Nicole, I just want you to see some of the gratitude that's coming through on here. and people were private messaging me as well, saying that this was an amazing class. So
Oh, I'm so glad.
messaging me, guys, start commenting here in the class. I know some of the people that are catching this on YouTube don't have access to comments, so
Yeah.
that's probably why they're messaging me.
Right.
All
It was
right.
so much fun. Thank you so much, everybody. Have an amazing next class and class after that.
All right. Take care.
Yeah.